There's always a part of us that we think we're not good enough.
Who gets to write their own destiny then?
Those who are brave enough to write it. You're going to decide not to be the victim.
She's an award-winning entrepreneur, journalist, and international thought leader on social impact and innovation. As the founder and CEO of Startups Without Borders, she has spent more than a decade building a thriving ecosystem, supporting over 20,000 refugee, migrant, and local innovators across the Middle East, Europe, and Africa. We have the inspiring Valentina Primo on the show today.
By really getting obsessive about that problem that you want to solve, you build that confidence because it's really about the problem. It's not about you. I always felt this idea that I don't fit in. It doesn't matter. You don't need to fit in. What matters is what you're bringing to the table. It's because you are different that you can create value.
For someone listening who feels they don't have the courage right now, how do they go about building it?
How do you build courage? I think
We've had a lot of new listeners recently, which is super exciting. If you're one of them, welcome and thank you. Every week, we're bringing you the guests and the conversations that enable you to become the most extraordinary version of yourself. If that's what you're here for, I have a small favor to ask. If you could look down at your device right now and tap the follow button to follow the show, that'll make sure you never miss an episode. And that way, we stay connected on this platform as well. It only takes a second. It's completely free to do. And it really helps a small team like ours reach the people who are also committed to performing at their best. Thank you so much. Now let's get into today's episode.
Valentina, through your organization, Startups Without Borders, you've gone on to impact and support thousands of entrepreneurs in a multitude of ways across multiple countries. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned along the way?
I think innovation will come from the most unexpected place. I come from Argentina, from a country where we often look up to Europe and the US and these ecosystems where there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of progress, so to say. But then through my journey, through, going into a region that was demonized and that was on another side of the world, the Middle East, Egypt, a country between Africa and the Middle East, I learned that innovation, true innovation, which is solving problems in a creative way, comes from places you would really, really not expect.
What have been some examples of that? Like where have you seen that play out?
One of the craziest stories I learned at the beginning of my journey when I was starting Startups Without Borders was a founder who spent 2 years in a refugee camp. He was from Syria, but grew up in Lebanon, spent some time in Dubai after that, and found himself stranded in the Netherlands in a refugee camp. He thought it was going to be only 1 month. It ended up becoming 2 years.
Wow.
And within the refugee camp, he did a master's in blockchain and founded a startup that uses blockchain to provide people with a virtual ID. So that story, to think that blockchain startups will come from refugee camps, right? In spaces and moments where opportunity doesn't seem to be that obvious, right? And that was truly, truly inspiring.
Do you know if he had the belief within himself when there? And the reason I ask this is we had a guest recently, Jake Groshong, who's CEO at Playing for Change Foundation. It's an amazing organization where they'll go in with music programs as an entry point to then solve some massive problems like human trafficking and gang violence, and then going and increasing graduation rates and so many other areas. And one of the things that he shared was really interesting, which was that of instilling the belief in their ability, because in some countries that maybe look up to places like the US or Europe, like some of the things you mentioned, it can lead to, in some cases, feeling less than, that my ideas don't matter or my opinions don't matter. What he was sharing is that when that's unlocked, there's amazing things that are possible there. And so did he believe in himself beginning? Because that's an awesome thing to experience. And what was the story there?
So I think this is something I've noticed across so many countries and with the entrepreneurs that we work with. There's something to say about the grit that migrants and refugees have to become entrepreneurs. They are problem solvers by nature. They have it in their DNA, and it's part of their journey. I remember another example of an entrepreneur who I interviewed in Germany and in the early days of my journey. And I said, how did you get here from Syria? And he said, I took every possible means of transportation you can imagine, right? There is this problem solving of getting things done no matter how. In the example with the refugee camp, his name is Tay, and he's done a few TED Talks as well. He got to access a startup weekend event, right? And meet other people who were thinking about using blockchain to innovate. In other cases, it's really meeting someone during the journey that can open up a door, an opportunity, getting to know an incubator, an accelerator, a program for entrepreneurs has been instrumental, and I would say fundamental, right? There's a lot to say about what the journey of a person who has traveled looking for a better future, what that journey leaves in them, or that teaches them in order to achieve the creation of a startup or a business.
Do you notice a correlation with the startups that are done and built out with them seeing certain problems that exist and then going, I'm going to solve that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I could give you so many examples. I'm going to take you back a few years in time. I'm going to take you to 2012, which is when I moved to Egypt. I was in Italy. I had just finished my master's degree, and I had a job which was not really what I wanted to do. So I quit my job. I did not know what I was doing, but I said, I'm going to move to Egypt. And this was very shortly after the Arab Spring, right? The revolts that toppled down military regimes that have been there for 30 years. And I moved there. My dream was to become a journalist, to be a brave journalist. And what I learned there and what I discovered was thousands of young Egyptians that were taking it upon themselves to change their country and their nation. And they were doing it through startups. And that's really the first time I learned about what a startup was, right? And there was so much power in that feeling of, I want to do something for my nation. I want to help women. I want to help people recycle more because we don't do it in this country. They were able to identify problems they were experiencing every day. And because, this was the peak of social media, this was the peak of, internet was opening really a door to innovation and to things that were not there 10 years before. So leveraging on that, they started creating startups. There was no pathway. There were very few incubators, really the first ones. And they were doing it. I interviewed entrepreneurs that were under 20 years old that were really, really figuring out the way as they built their businesses.
That's amazing. We had another guest, I think it was Sandy Carter, who was sharing about how, from a future standpoint, those who know intently the problem are going to be the ones that utilize things like artificial intelligence and agents. And from an agentic AI standpoint, she gave a great example of this hackathon that occurred with Claude Anthropic. I think it was the third place was a cardiologist who had never coded in his life, but knew the problem intimately that his patients were experiencing, and all of a sudden achieved that, which is just wild to think about what problems are going to get solved in the years to come, and who's going to solve them. I'm really curious as to what comes in the coming years and who's going to do it.
I think it's really interesting to see how different startup ecosystems and innovation ecosystems are across North America, Europe, and regions like Africa, Asia.
What are the differences? What do you notice? So,
for example, we work a lot in Italy, where GovTech is there's a really strong focus on that. Everything related to innovation for government.
Right.
Deep tech, there's a strong focus on deep tech. Technologies that utilize really, really advanced IP and scientific discoveries. And so they really dive deep into the infrastructure of it. Whereas in countries in Africa or in Asia or the Middle East, they are solving real world problems. And it might be an e-commerce platform, a marketplace. We see a lot of fintech innovations for the underbanked. We look at countries like Egypt where 80% of the population. Well, when I was there, it was 80% of the population that was unbanked. Today, 75%. Startups have done a great job in there. But the majority of people do not have access to banking or credit or savings, right? So they build startups that from a technology point of view may not be a disruptive innovation, but they are solving a problem for a massive market, for a large number of people, right? There's another startup from Egypt that was the first unicorn, first $1 billion startup to IPO at NASDAQ. And their solution was transportation, public transportation through an app, utilizing underused buses because tourism was destroyed by the revolution. Nobody would come to Egypt at the time. They decided to utilize those buses, build an app, connect users, and they grew. They acquired 5 other mobility companies in different countries, Argentina amongst them. They're solving problems that are related to their everyday challenges with technology, right? But what we see in Silicon Valley is the edge of technology. It's utilizing AI to improve processes and systems. And in Europe, we see a lot of B2B, business to business innovation, right?
Interesting.
So there is a difference in the nature of the problems being solved and the technologies being created.
How did you go about moving from, you said journalism? That's a big shift across, you know what, I'm going to go in this direction instead. Take us through that. How did you go about making that decision? And did it happen over time or was it an instant decision? What happened?
It was through inspiration, really, because so I was in Egypt back to that 2012, my first arrival, spent 6 years there. And
6 years in journalism as well? Or
yeah, mostly.
Yep. Okay, yep.
Yeah. And so I worked for a platform where I would regularly interview both refugees from different countries and entrepreneurs. And these were 2 fields that seemed so different from each other until I met a refugee who was an entrepreneur. And I would travel through the region. I would go to countries, Jordan, Lebanon, that are impacted by conflict. You know, Lebanon, 1/4 of the population are refugees, or 1/4 of the population are refugees. And there is a lot of entrepreneurial drive to just make things happen. So I began getting to know one after another. And this is when I thought, well, this is not an exception to the norm. Refugee entrepreneurs are not the exception to the norm. They are new reality. What happens is they are structurally underserved. They do not have, in most cases, the ability to register a business legally. Right. They do not have access to financial services, credit, institutions. So why don't we connect them across borders so they can build and grow their businesses? And we also talk with partners from countries where they can register from abroad virtually. There's Estonia in Europe that has an e-residency. So there's many ways in which it is possible to do it. It's just network is everything. It's really that's where the possibility lies for a
network
business
is in relationships or network is in something else?
Relationships, okay. Yes, but also access to information, knowing what's available.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, okay, you've come up with the idea. How long did it take for you to actually execute on that, Startups Without Borders? And was there a time between, okay, I'm going to now leave what I know? Because I know those listening, there's going to be, whether they're determining, okay, maybe I'm going to start a business on my own, or I've been in business for a very long time and I'm going to try and work out what I'm going to do next once I've exited out of this. It can be a scary place, the uncertain and the unknown. Did it take time for you to fully immerse yourself in this, or was it an instant thing?
It takes a lot of patience and belief. Yeah. And that's a muscle that you train. It's not, you never become confident in that state. It's not something you have, it's something you develop, right? And I was lucky to be surrounded by so many entrepreneurs. They did not know what they were doing. They were just doing it, right? You learn as you go, as you do. And then it was an overnight decision. So I was in Alexandria in Egypt in a startup conference, and I received one email at night. It was a coach offering this challenge for the end of the year. And I said, well, I'm starting tomorrow. This idea that's been going on in my head about an ecosystem for entrepreneurs on the move, I'm starting tomorrow. So the next day, that conference was a bit intense because I had to be the jury in a startup competition. I had to be a journalist as well, and I had to be in a panel. But what I did is all the networking moments, I would tell people, well, I'm starting this. And you will be surprised at how many people help you and offer help when you say, I want to build something, especially because you want to impact people. And every entrepreneur wants to change the world, even if it's the world of their consumers, the lives of their customers, right? But there's that willingness and people want to join that mission. So I had a lot of people saying, well, I'll be your advisor. I'll help you build the website. I'll help you. So I really received so much help, and I kept growing that muscle to believe that I could do it. Because I always thought I'm not born to be a leader. I never thought of myself as running a company or an organization. And it was through seeing so many of these young entrepreneurs in the Arab world that I realized, well, you don't need to have all the answers. You just need to take one step and then another one and then another one. Even if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, keep going. So I did not know what the business model was going to be. I had no idea. I kept working with a mentor on the business model canvas and so on, but I still did not figure it out. But I knew that Facebook did not know their business model for a long time. But they were building a community. They were building what they call traction.
So you knew something was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had an idea that you knew something was there. There was something in it, even though you didn't have. I think this is really important for those listening to understand, is that you don't have to have all the answers right away. I've shared this on the podcast a number of times. There's this song that I wrote years ago of clarity comes from not knowing at first. All in time, my friend. And these lyrics, there are going to be times where you don't have all of the answers. What you can have is some kind of conviction about, okay, there is something here, or I know I want to build something that's going to help people do X. I don't know how exactly I'm going to go about it, but I'm curious enough to find out. One question I have for you is, do you find it easy to ask for help? You had these people coming in when you were mentioning about something you were aiming to do. Do you find it easy to ask for help?
That's such a good question. Because so this year I relocated to New York. I got the opportunity to be part of the Obama Scholars Program, and it's a new environment and it's a high stakes environment.
Yeah. And
you do feel a lot of times as a woman, as a migrant, you do feel that you shouldn't be there, that you don't fit.
What am I doing here? Right? I feel that constantly. There's different times. We were just literally talking about it last night on the sofa after. We just had some incredible interviews yesterday. And I was just like, what? Dude from outback Australia, like on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And like, it's wild sometimes when you think about it. And how, like, have you developed the ability to work through that? Or is it a constant thing for you?
I think it's a constant thing. Yeah. It's also ups and downs. There's periods where you feel really confident and things start to happen. And there's periods where you feel you're asking too much. And I have reflected a lot on this idea of fitting in. I grew up in Argentina and I never felt I fit in. And then I moved to Rome and I wanted to be a journalist. I felt that was impossible in Italy. It's a very close circle. And then I moved to Cairo. And then there's this idea of, well, I'm a journalist, but I'm writing startup stories. So my fellow journalists do not consider me a real journalist. I work for a local platform, not for an international newspaper or a foreign correspondent, right? And I'm also this like jury in startup competitions, but I don't have a business background. I'm now an entrepreneur, but I don't have a business background. So I always felt this idea that I don't fit in. And then I realized, well, it doesn't matter. You don't need to fit in. What matters is really what you're bringing to the table. And it's because you are different that you can create something unique to offer, that you can create value. An entrepreneur, our job is to bring value, to create value, to solve problems in order to bring value to our customers, our users. So by really getting obsessive about that problem that you want to solve, you build that confidence because it's really about the problem. It's not about you, right? So whenever I feel these uncertainty or lack of confidence, I always think about, well, I'm not doing it. This is not for me. This is for this business, this organization. This is to solve this problem.
Yeah. And you find that that improves your ability to then ask for help because it's not just about you anymore. It's about something much bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, that's interesting. I like to think about this. I share this on in keynotes. One of the key points of that is the way I like to think about purpose. You have a purpose that's bigger than your problems. Yeah. Right? The bigger your problems you have, the bigger the purpose needs to be. Because as you come up against those challenges, the purpose has to be so large that, and I think about it like almost like waves. Like, you mentioned about the ups and the downs. If you've got like waves and they're like small waves and you've got a purpose that's big, you're good. But if those waves are much bigger than the purpose, you're gonna succumb to the pressure. You're gonna succumb to the I'm not good enough or the imposter syndrome that might kick in at different times, rather than being able to continue to relate back to that which is a purpose that's much bigger than your problems, and then you're just able to knock that down over and over and over again. And I think with imposter syndrome, I thought a lot about this, like, kind of what am I doing here, or are they going to find me out? At the end of the day, it's like we're simply exceeding the level that we currently believe that we're worthy of, right? And if that's the case, then we should experience some version of that feeling at different times. Otherwise, we're probably not growing enough or growing fast enough or dreaming big enough. And so I think there has to be some version of that, of like, what am I even doing here? That you go, yeah, you're on the right track, right? You're on the right track. And it's not that you want to experience that maybe all the time, because you want to have these, again, the waves of feeling. Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I got this. Yeah. And then the other times, like, you're holding on behind the boat, going, like I'm not, so like that experience, I think is very natural to experience.
Yeah.
And as we continue to be okay with that, the asking for help is important. It seems like this happened for you. When people hear the problem that you're aiming to solve, and especially if they care about the problem that you're aiming to solve, they want to help. There's some really good people in the world. The media and stuff might portray it as different, but oh my gosh, there are some amazing humans in this world. And I'm sure you've met many, many, many of them now, which is beautiful to experience, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest realizations and turning points in the way I see my work as well is the people that I wanted to support and help, they help me, right? So the person who offered to build a website for our organization in the early days, he was a refugee.
Interesting.
Right? The person who taught me how to engage volunteers for our events and how to build these, we would call it company culture, he was a refugee. Right? So the people that you want to help, they want to help you too.
Yeah.
It's really a two-way road. And they are also obsessed with the problem that you are obsessed with, right? I call it obsession. I know there's that famous quote that says, fall in love with the problem, not with the solution. I think the more obsessive you become about that problem, the more conviction you'll have and the more you can drive people in. Because today we're not just building companies, we're building movements. People want to believe in the companies that they go into a relationship with. They need to believe that. And it's no coincidence that the brands that are the most successful today, they have such strong values and they communicate those values really powerfully.
It's like turning it as well when it comes to our own selves and falling in love with the problem or becoming obsessed with the problem. It's what turns it from an I want to do this, or even maybe the next level of I need to do this, to I must do this. That is where that obsession can kick in. It's where falling in love with the problem. It's a I know that why I'm here almost, and that's a recipe for grit, resilience, the challenges, and everything that comes with creating a company. What have been some of the challenges for you that you've come up against then?
So I'm going to tell you another story.
Please.
Fast forward to 2019, right? So I decided to launch the company. The first thing we did was to really engage with people we wanted to serve. I love this idea of the servant leader, right? You lead by serving people, both your team and the people you serve with your company, your customers. So we created a competition, a very simple competition via Facebook. Write down if you're a refugee, write down your business idea. We'll select the top 10, give you a coaching session. So we got a co-working space that partnered with us. We got them all in a co-working space, 20 refugees. And we had individual coaching sessions. But then when we were together in a group, we would do design thinking sessions on what is the number one thing that will help you and your business today? What is the number one challenge that you are experiencing, right? And we would really get their feedback on what it is that we needed to build. And then we would cross-connect that feedback with what organizations working already with refugees for years would tell us that they need. And then we would talk to corporations. We were lucky to work with companies like Meta, like Google, GoDaddy, and see how they view entrepreneurship as well and what they can bring to the table. So it was really a lot of testing. We used the startup, the lean startup model, test, validate, and then iterate, right? And it took us a long time to build recurring revenue, but it was 2019, then I decided to move back to Rome and continue to build the organization there because it was global from the beginning. It was never meant to be only in Egypt, only in the Middle Eastern region or in Africa. So I go back to Rome and I'm building the summit. I thought I'm going to build a large conference, the Startups Without Borders Summit, where investors can come, entrepreneurs can come, both refugees, migrants, and locals. Corporates can come and engage, partner, open innovation activities. We got the public sector, we got the universities, we partnered with the American University in Cairo, who's hosted us actually. And we were building this summit. I was bringing people together. However, it was our first event. Nobody knew us. And it was a tricky concept. You're going to get refugees and investors together. Nobody had done that before. And I'm not going to lie, it was a very dark tunnel because the months kept going. And I'm trying to sell sponsorships and nobody's confirming. And I'm engaging with big players. Yeah. And nobody's confirming. And my own runway was completely running out. I was about to go broke in every other sense. I had literally 600 euros left in my bank account. I even called my sister and I asked her, well, listen, if I fail, can you back me up with, help me pay the rent? I really did not have any more. And I remember calling my boss and my mentor at the time. And I said, Henny, his name is Henny Naguib. And I said, Henny, I don't know what to do. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like I have this summit. I am not going to cancel it. I've announced it publicly. I've engaged the media. I am not canceling it. Yeah. And he said, well, what are your costs? Start cutting costs, start getting in kind, start working through it. He gave me all the advice I needed, but I needed to keep believing it would happen. And I would say I would put on my headphones, whatever it takes, that song. Yeah. Imagine Dragons. Yeah. I love them. Whatever it takes. And I would do that and I would work day and night. And I would talk to everyone. 1 month before the summit, the 2 largest sponsors I was negotiating with confirmed. And the summit was a success. We got 1,000 people. Wow. We got a lot of media partnerships and visibility, all organic traction. It was a great proof of concept, but it was also a really big testament for me. You have to believe. You have to believe. And there's no plan B. People sometimes ask me, like, what was your plan B? Well, I did not have one. You either make it or you'll figure it out. But if you have a plan B, you'll fall down to that really quickly. Yeah. You'll rely on that.
What has been the beliefs about yourself then that you've developed as a result of that experience? It's a great example of you never know how close you actually are to success, and you can't possibly know that until you get to the other side of it. Yeah. And so there just has to be that almost like faith in a way of trusting that it's going to work out just as it's going to, and putting the time and the effort and all of the craziness that goes into building something from scratch, right? Yeah. What did you learn? What did you develop within yourself belief-wise?
Confidence. Yeah. There's a podcaster and he's a high performance coach that I love called Brendan Burchard. And he says, confidence is believing that you have the ability to figure things out, right? So what I learned is I can figure it out. I will figure it out. I can solve problems. Whatever I don't know, I can learn it. And if I cannot learn it, I can get someone on board who knows it better than me, right? I think that was a big lesson.
It's a good
And
one.
I can also tell you an exercise that I did that's pretty funny, but it was useful.
Bring it. I love the fun exercise. I got a bunch of them that I do, like just the stuff that goes on internally for me. And because I think the more fun or funny you can make things, the more likely it is that you're going to actually do it. I don't know about you, but like I like doing fun things. So fill us in.
Same. So there is a letter you can write to yourself. And there's always a part of us that we think we're not good enough at, right? You may think you're not made to be a leader like I did. You may think that you're not good at business, right? So I always thought I don't have it in me to be a leader. I was not born for this. And then what you do is you write a letter to yourself, but the person writing the letter is your leadership. So it's your leadership saying, hi, Valentina, this is me. Remember when you did this when you were growing up. Remember how you guided your neighbors on a treasure hunt when you were young. That was leadership. That was me. Remember when you moved across the Atlantic on the other side of the world all alone and you had no idea what the future holds for you. Remember all of those things because that's your leadership. That's there. And you keep that letter at reach, right? So you can reach to that and reread it again every time your confidence starts to, or every time that voice, which is always there, tells you maybe you won't make it.
Yeah. It's a really good exercise for a big reason I find. When it comes to one, it's just a fun exercise to do for starters, right?
Yeah.
And just enjoying that. And there is within that letter is you building in something that I call reference points. We all have reference points about whether we're good enough or whether we're not, right? And it comes from a big part of it is, okay, what do I believe about something? In this case, I believe that I'm not made to be a leader. I'm not meant to be a leader. And so then our brains, because we can't possibly process every single piece of information that comes to us every single second, there's not even a remote amount of what we actually process within our key senses compared to what it actually is in the world. Not even close. Very, very small percentage. And so what we do is we'll adapt information and only take the information that we believe to be real that's aligned to our belief systems. Your exercise there is a great example of, rather than trying to tell yourself to override the previous pattern of behavior, the previous belief system, it's proving it. It's giving examples of it where you can't deny that because it was real experience, which is what makes that exercise a really powerful exercise. Not only fun, but there's real behavioral change that can be occurring in there at the same time, which I love.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, I love affirmations. I wouldn't say I master them because there's that difference. I feel that writing them sometimes can be more powerful when you write your goals as if they already happened. Mm-hmm. That's another exercise. And by the way, these are not, I didn't invent them. This is Rachel Hollis. And
nice.
I learned from her. But it's really writing what your goals are as if they already happened. So either in the past or in the present, right? So I want to publish a book. I write every day. I published a book.
Yeah.
I want to buy a house in the Amalfi Coast. I write that. I bought a home in the Amalfi Coast. And your brain starts kind of perceiving that discrepancy between what is and what you're saying and tries to make it happen. Yeah.
And that's the thing. The language matters so much. It matters so much. Yeah. And there's another example of, by doing that and continuing to take action towards that, because here's the thing, those reference points we talked about just before, okay, I write every day. Well, did you write today?
Yeah.
And if you did, then you're able to continue reinforcing that over and over again. And slowly but surely there becomes a layer of conviction because, oh yeah, this is who I am versus this is something that I do. So then it doesn't just become lip service or something on the wall or something that you read or even something you write out. It's something you become.
Yeah.
I think that's a massive difference. And that example that you gave of, okay, writing out those goals and doing it in a present tense, but then making sure Like if you're just writing it out and just writing it out every day and then writing it out again, at some stage you ain't writing it. If you're not actually doing that stuff, you're going to call bullshit on it, right? And your ability to be able to continue utilizing the language, utilizing the vision, visualize that, and then putting it into practice is a key piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that's where habits come in, right?
Yeah.
What got you here won't get you there, right? So you need a set of habits. You need practices that become routine so that you can build that person. And that's also the beauty of entrepreneurship. You're not just working on your business. You're working most importantly on yourself in order to serve that purpose and that mission that you set out for yourself. You need to become someone better every day, and you need the habits that will keep you building that muscle.
I remember someone saying years ago that one of the biggest personal development journeys you'll ever go on is running a business. Because as it stands, if you're, in sales, for example, and you're selling a product of some company, that's one thing. But all of a sudden, like, you got to sell yourself. There's all kinds of limiting patterns that you didn't even know were there. They were just lurking underneath the surface that rear their ugly heads. And you got to deal with that stuff, or you don't eat, right? It's either you do it or you don't build it, right? Yeah. What are some of the habits then that you've found really useful over the time?
Exercise, number one.
What's your routine with that?
I go for a run.
Yep. You're a runner?
Yeah. I love running.
What is it about running that you love?
There's the dopamine of it, right? There's the runner's high that comes after. You feel you can do anything. And sometimes you just run as fast as you can because you're in your head. You're trying to sort out a problem. You can't get out of it. And then you run, and at some point you enter this state when you're not thinking anymore. You're running. And that state enables that nervous system reset that you need to see the problem from a different angle, to find new solutions, to come up with ideas. I've come up with so many ideas while running that I have to stop and maybe write it on a note, right? That happens a lot. And you come back feeling you can take on these challenges. You can take on the world, right? So running is a big one.
Is there a certain time of the day that you do that? Or does it change?
I'm really bad at that.
Okay.
So there's periods. I do it a lot in the morning when the weather is nice. There's other periods where I do it after the day is over and you can watch beautiful sunsets. I used to live in Rome and I would go running around the Colosseum and come back.
Oh, nice.
And it's just, the beauty of it. Now that I'm in New York, I go running in Central Park, and it's really, I used to manifest that. I used to visualize that, dreaming of it, right?
There's something really magical about Central Park. I went there for the first time back in, I think it was 2016. Saw my first squirrel in 2016. We don't have them back in Australia. And I'm cruising through Central Park and there's a squirrel with an acorn in its mouth, like digging around to put it away. And it was like, I guarantee there was at least 7 different New Yorkers going, oh yeah, another tourist, right? So just this dude just looking at a squirrel. But there's just something magical about the entire place. So it's beautiful walking through there. So I can imagine, running. It's really nice to go through there in the morning or during the day sometime.
Yeah.
What other habits?
Gratitude. That's, I would say, maybe even on top of running, gratitude is a very big one because it sets your brain to see abundance, to get into the abundance mindset, and you start seeing opportunities and start focusing on opportunities. So I like to think of gratitude. And what I mean by this is write down 10 reasons you're grateful for every day. Some days you'll reach 5. Some days it will be harder, but if you commit, after 5 days, I can promise you, things start happening that you can't explain. Help arrives from unexpected places. Problems start to become more clear. And I love to think about it as putting on glasses, and the lens through which you see the world now has a different color. So you really start seeing opportunities, you start seeing potential, you start seeing blessings, if you will. It really sets your brain in such a good way.
Yeah. There's something that Brittany and I, my wife, do each morning and each evening. Of the morning is, what are you most excited about for the day? And then the evening is, what did you love most about the day? And that ritual there of just each and every day, in the morning being able to get your mind in a place where it's being excited about something. And some days there's not much to be excited about. right? There's some days there's not much to be excited about.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, we just haven't gotten much sleep. And the thing is, I'm really looking forward to bed tonight, right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's so okay. And then in the evenings, even if it's been a really terrible day, like finding that something that you can be appreciative for, finding that something that you can say, hey, even though it wasn't a great day, this is what was great about it. And this is what I appreciate about it. This is what I loved about it. So I love that you've got a gratitude practice there. That's great. So good. So good. So tell us a little about the Startups Without Borders itself. Like what is some of the functionality of the organization? How does it actually help?
We think about it as an ecosystem, and this is really our mission. It's entrepreneurs, whether they're refugees, migrants, or local, they don't just need one thing. It's not only about skills. It's not only about building that muscle, the capacity building, the training, and it's not only about capital. It is really about having an environment that is enabling and that helps them thrive. That's why ecosystem is called a startup ecosystem, or Silicon Valley is called a startup ecosystem, right? It's really different pieces that come together. We do a lot of mentorship. So we connect the CTO of Nokia, for example, is one of our mentors, mentoring startups back in other countries in the global south. We have mentors who are partners at VC firms. We connect those mentors to help guide them through the ups and downs and the roller coaster that entrepreneurship is. We have another component, which is an investment network. So we have over 200 investors from different countries that come to our summit every year, that come to our different events and discuss investment deals. Oftentimes they do end up investing in these businesses, in these startups. And these investors are driven by this mission, by this appetite, and by the fact that these are really, really high potential startups that are solving problems in markets that are very hard to reach, that are innovating the way problems are being solved, and that represent an intersection of cultures that is really interesting and that brings about a lot in terms of market access, right? An entry point to markets. And I'll give you one concrete example. So in Rome, we run a program called Diversity Innovation Days. We did it in partnership with the American Embassy in Rome. We had 4 hackathons where people would come with one idea, just an idea. Yeah. And we would have young Italians, we would have young migrants and young refugees. They build teams in one weekend, in 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. They get together, build a team, transform their idea into a business model, validate through exercises. There's a case where we did it in a co-working space that was on a train station. So they went out into the train station to interview people. They validate their idea and they launch a prototype in a weekend. Throughout the year, we did it in 9 months. So throughout the year, the different startups get connected to different mentors that take part in the weekend as well. And they end up launching into the market. So one of these cases, Khalid, he comes from Egypt. He was based in Italy, and he had an idea for an IoT solution that uses AI to solve the parking problem. So it's a series of sensors so that people could just book parking, exchange parking spots. It's a big problem in Italy, in Rome, as we've seen in Austin this weekend as well.
Yeah.
And when he arrived to the hackathon, he told me, Valentina, I have everything ready. I have the solution. I have the technology. I have everything ready. I just need the money. I said, Khalid, trust me. Come, join the hackathon. Stay for us throughout this weekend. You realize it's not just about money. It's not just about a funding or investment or seed capital. You need more than that. You're not going to be able, you will burn the cash in no time, right? He ended up taking part in the hackathon. He won first prize in the Diversity Innovation Days and ended up today partnering with universities and institutions in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. He ended up testing the product with the municipality of Rome. And we know bureaucracy in Italy. That must have taken months. He ended up working with Italy's largest car sharing company, Enjoy. So these partnerships are what will enable him to achieve growth in terms of a business. Customers. it's not just about the capital. So that's why we really think about it as an ecosystem where the different parts have a role to play. And altogether, they create a compounding effect. Because we see so often that these mentors take part, support the startups, and they may end up investing in them or joining their teams. Vice versa, some entrepreneurs end up supporting some businessmen in their businesses to become more innovative. So we see a lot of complementarity, a lot of connections happening, and it compounds over time because that's the network effect, right? It's really connections that may not materialize tomorrow. They may take months. You may introduce me.
Takes months, sometimes takes years. There's been relationships I've had for years and years and years. And some may never produce something. That's not the point. The point is being of service, I use the term of give freely without expectation, knowing you will get taken care of in some way, shape or form, right? And that's just proven to be time and time again, absolutely true, that I don't need something from this specific interaction, for example. It's going to pay off in some way, shape or form. I don't need it to come from somewhere. I think there's an attractive quality with that as well. When you don't need something from somebody, it'll be nice, but you don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we work at the intersection of for-profit and non-profit. We work with both partners. And it's
what's your business model with that?
Companies, we build programs with companies that are customized oftentimes.
Okay.
So with Meta, for example, they wanted to train small businesses on digital skills to utilize their platforms. So it was really a public policy engagement for them to establish good relationships with startup ecosystems. But it was also lead generation because these entrepreneurs end up using Meta platforms to grow their businesses, right? So they end up becoming clients. So it's really a win-win scenario. We did the same with GoDaddy when they launched the website. And we work with UN organizations, philanthropic organizations. Their objectives are more related to the kind of impact we are creating. So we also build programs like the Diversity Innovation Days in Rome with the American Embassy, where the bottom line here is the impact that we're creating and the people we are empowering to build businesses. Now, back to what you were saying was I find fascinating is the principle of giving first that is very, very palpable in the business world and the for-profit world. And oftentimes it's not that clear from the get-go. There's a disconnect in terms of the languages both worlds speak. And I find it so beautiful because really entrepreneurs will help each other and will partner with businesses that may compete on some levels on some products or services. But there's a solidarity that is oftentimes overlooked, right?
Yeah, there's certain industries as well that I find are more willing to collaborate and help one another. And there's a bunch of different industries that I know from my own experience within the events industry, within the speaking industry, within the podcast industry, within the coaching industry. Each of these pieces, I've just some incredible humans along the way. Same within business as well. And I've found if you approach it in that way, with that genuine nature of being a good human for one, and of genuinely that desire to support and to give. And I want to have a caveat here as well of if you do that for the purpose of knowing that you're enough, you will get taken advantage of every day of the week, right? This is about knowing your worth, knowing your value, and then by almost feeling filled up in this way that it's overflowing, that I have so much to give. Whereas if it's, I need this to know that I'm enough, people smell that coming a mile away. People smell it. You probably I've definitely witnessed it at different times of the neediness that comes to it, and it repels opportunities versus bringing opportunities in and that abundant thinking.
100%. And I think it also takes us back to this idea of servant leader, right? When you're there to serve,
correct, yeah,
to help others, you're going to get it back. You don't know when, you don't know how, but you're going to get it back. I think this journey we're all on is humbling at the end of the day. Whenever I get criticized, what I try to remind myself is you're never going to be criticized by someone who's done more than you or who's gone farther than you, because they know what the journey is like. And there's no sleeping on your success, because we've seen it with how many famous companies, big names internationally went down because it can change overnight. You can think of Blockbuster, for example, right? They didn't see it with Netflix. They didn't see it coming. That markets can change. Innovation is really turning some products, some services obsolete from one day to another. And I think it's a journey as entrepreneurs we go through, whether at different sectors, different levels. You know, you might be working on social impact and all of a sudden migration becomes controversial, right? And that's a challenge. You may be working on a for-profit business doing car sharing. And the problem, you know, becomes, it's a different kind of problem, but it's a humbling journey.
Yeah.
Because if you're not constantly learning, you won't have a future.
You can't necessarily control the things that happen, but you do have control over how you choose to respond to what happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's stuff that happens at different times, and you can go into it thinking, oh, woe is me. Why does this always happen to me? But at the end of the day, if the person who takes responsibility is the one that gets to create the change, whereas the person who blames stays with the pain around something, and there is always something that you can take responsibility for, even if it doesn't seem like it's your fault. And I wonder then, when it comes to, so you're working with folks from, like, let's say from a refugee standpoint, what's the difference between those who build something of value and those who don't?
Mm-hmm. What a question. So I think, do you mean those who do it out of ego?
Not necessarily. I guess what I'm getting at there is there are certain attributes that are required. And just using that example there, I would hazard a guess that especially someone experiencing what somebody has when it comes to being a refugee, if there is blame that occurs, if there is, it's all my country's fault, or this situation's fault, or this thing that happened, the moment that occurs, you've just given away all of your power. Now, it might be a dire situation, but the person that you mentioned near the start of the interview, there is a responsibility that was taken, that even though that happened, he went and got his master's and then went and created something. He took responsibility in the small area that he had ownership of. And so I would think that would be one massive part of it, of somebody who is successful in general, but what you're witnessing with someone who is experiencing massive hardship. So looking around, it's a massive hardship. What are the other attributes that it takes to build something successful out of challenge?
I think that's such an interesting point. And I want to share one small story that inspired me deeply and changed the way I see refugees. I was in 2015 in Jordan, close to the border with Syria. And I interviewed this young 22-year-old refugee called Dina. She told me she had recently arrived, had taught herself English because she didn't speak English before. And this NGO was helping her. And she felt very bad about it and very unhappy about it, because she said, I used to volunteer back in Syria in my country. I am the one usually helping others. We are not just refugees. We also want to change the world. And this really, it was a moment where the paradigm changed. I realized that this was about dignity. I have really not encountered people blaming governments or blaming others for their situation. They are really trying to find their way. Yeah. They're building their way, and they're reclaiming their story, their narrative, and their future. They take the reins of their future. And this is powerful and very inspiring. And what I find, you just asked me what, sets apart those who make it. It's the ability to get up after every downfall.
Yeah.
You fall down, you get defeated by the market, by a competitor, because it didn't work. They get up again and again and again. And it's not uncommon to see refugees who are on their third business, second business, right? They've done it once, failed, they move on. Another participant who took part in our program, he's Moroccan Italian. He's now in Paris doing another incubation program. They go at it again and again.
Yeah.
And this is valid for entrepreneurs across the board, right? Like, you're going to make it because you're determined and you keep going and you keep going and trying despite the downfalls. They are going to come. You are going to fall down through the process, right?
there's a lot of people that are losing sight of the ability to bounce back and to bounce back up because, yeah, I mean, it's challenging, and we try to avoid discomfort in a lot of ways, and not deal with the situation that's actually occurring. The more that we're able to go, all right, there's a problem, let's get at it, right? And the ability to be able to bounce back up. There was this experience that I had as a National Geographic explorer. I went down and filmed in Colombia a few years ago. And an amazing experience. And part of that, there was a 2 days down this class 4 and class 5 rapids river. And it was an amazing experience. One of the days, we were in the middle of the jungle, like no cell service, jungle out to either side. The only way out is this class 4 and class 5 rapids. And cruise down, having a meal at the end of it's about 10 o'clock at night or something like that, about time to go to bed. One of the guys says, oh, we should do a time lapse of the stars over the top and the river raging underneath. I go, oh, I don't want to do a time lapse, and I don't even know how to do a time lapse, right? Definitely wasn't my area of expertise. And we ended up going back and forth, and I all right, go down to the river. He takes my other camera, I take this one, get down to these big boulders, jump over, and get a really good shot. Stars over the top, river underneath, only a couple of clouds, that's it. Cruise back, get in the hammock, go to bed, doze off very easily, wake up a small time later to this noise, and I'm like, oh, what's that? And I was, oh no, it's raining. And I'm like, no. I run down the middle of the jungle in the middle of the night, like my headlamp on and like my phone of my light on my phone's on. And I start jumping over these boulders and they become really slippery. And I said, oh man, I've got to be really careful here. So I jump. Finally get to the camera, pack it up. It's super wet. I go, right, hopefully that's going to be okay because it's my most expensive lens, most expensive camera. Pack it up. I have my phone in, the camera in this hand and the tripod, my phone here. And I jumped to the next rock, the next boulder, and I slipped. And I've got nothing to brace my fall, and I come crashing down. Like my elbow smashes into the rock, and that my phone falls straight out into the river as a result. My most expensive lens smashes straight into the rock face. I have cuts up and down my legs, and I'm in serious pain. I'm like, and I'm in that moment, I'm just livid because I'm like, I didn't want to do the stupid timeless. This is all his fault, right? And I find my phone's down in the river. I'm just able to reach it. I can see it because the light's still on. I grab that, turn it off in the faint hope that's going to be okay, and then cruise across, grab the tripod, grab my camera, and I start marching up towards this dude. And I'm like, right, he's going to get a piece of my mind, right? And I think I had enough time between the moment that it happened and where he was up at the camp for me to say, dude, nothing good's going to come from this conversation. Shut up, pack up, and get to bed, right? That was it. So we packed up mostly in silence, and I went back to the hammock afterwards. I'm laying there and I go, dude, there's got to be some lessons in this. And there were some amazing lessons that I got out of it. There were these 4 in particular. The first was perspective, that could have been much worse. I could have easily smashed my head against the rock that night. It's the middle of the night. The only way out is class 4 and class 5 rapids. I could have broken a bone. I could have dislocated something. I don't know how we would have gotten out. There's no cell service. I don't know how we would have gotten out. It would have been extraordinarily painful. It could have been much worse. It can always be much worse. And that perspective can help us get back to a neutral state of mind, right? Because if you're dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, no, come back to the present moment. So that perspective is huge. The second was ownership, right? I really wanted to blame this guy. Like I really wanted to blame him. And at that point, and then at the end of the day, like I shared before, the person who takes responsibility gets to create the change. Person who blames stays with the pain. And so in that moment, I go, he suggested it. I decided to do it. My responsibility, not his. My responsibility. It enabled me to make some change around it. Third was one that you mentioned earlier, which was gratitude, right? What can I be grateful for in this moment? I'm like, all right, well, I'm still in the jungle. Like, I got a grant with National Geographic. What the, like, you serious? Like, it was just a dream come true, some of these pieces. I still had some camera gear to be able to utilize to continue telling the story. So it's like not the end of the world. So there were still things to be grateful for. Yeah. And like, I'm in the middle of the jungle. It's amazing. The fourth one was opportunity. Like, how can I grow out the back end of this? Yeah. How can I grow and evolve? And for me, they were like, oh, I have this framework that I can utilize in any situation going forward where I could get myself into a neutral state of mind through perspective, take ownership. How can I take responsibility? What can I be grateful for? And how can I grow out the back end of that? And I'm laying there And I'm just going, oh yeah, like perspective, ownership. These are good insights, like gratitude, ownership, opportunity. And I go, oh, that spells out the word POGO. Like I had a POGO stick as a kid growing up on the farm.
Oh.
You bounce back.
Yeah.
Right? You bounce back up at these key things. And that's the key. If you can bounce back from these situations, challenging moments that occur, we all go through these challenging moments. We all go through challenging situations. And our ability to bounce back in those specific moments, partly is our ability to have perspective to see it could have been much worse. No matter how bad it gets, it can always be much worse.
Yeah.
Those other key components we spoke about, I think, are all core components of what it really takes to create something of value. And if you don't have that, you're going to be really struggling because you haven't got the toughness that's required to get back up. And as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's creating a startup or a company, you are going to get knocked down multiple times.
100%.
And your ability to get back up and be stronger is, I'd say, a massive secret weapon.
100%. And so I take a lot of inspiration from the people we work with.
Right.
I have never seen, we work in conflict areas, right? Countries like Iraq, Palestine, Lebanon, where there is the loss of lives, right?
Yeah.
Many of these people have lost family members and have been under bombardment. And I see that resilience, and how could I complain? How could I not try to make it, right? And I think in your story, there's also one other element, which is taking lessons, thinking, instead of thinking, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I should have. No, what can I learn from this for the next time?
Yeah.
And this is something I personally learned a lot from one of my colleagues at the Obama Scholars Program, who is here right now, Victoria Coquetz. So this idea that you can always learn from a situation and figure out how would you do it better instead of dwelling on what you didn't do, what you did wrong, or it's really about learning that. And I think your story also, it's a testament to that, right? The idea.
It's built in there for sure, because that's where I see opportunity is how am I learning, how am I growing, how am I evolving? In that specific case, it was those 4 key steps. But like you said, in other situations, there's going to be some kind of lesson that you can take from that that's going to enable you to be more resilient in the future, or stronger in the future, or more adaptable in the future, or more loving in the future. Whatever the thing is that you can learn from it and grow through it, that they are there. Like that's where often the hardship is where the biggest lessons are. I know for me, like the biggest challenges that I've had throughout my life is most of the biggest insights have come from those big breakdowns.
Yeah. So they say transformation, either it comes from an internal pursuit, right? You're seeking your purpose. You're seeking passionately that thing that will give meaning to your life, or life will give you that.
Yeah.
Because it will come from the outside, and that would be even harder, right? That's the those are the ones that hurt. And they hurt your knees, and they hurt your body, and they can take different forms, but it's life changing your life, although it sounds redundant, but it's really creating that change that you need to go through to become the person you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like you said, there's stuff internally you do. Maybe it's sometimes externally. Maybe it's a massive proverbial slap across the face that has to happen because, you had to go through it, right?
Yeah.
So you're going forward, looking to the future, Startups Without Borders. I know you've got a book either out or coming out. Share a little about that. What does that look like, and what's the vision for the future for you?
So I am, while in New York, I am finishing writing the book. So looking for editors as well for the book. It's called Dear Destiny. And it's really the combination of my story in search for purpose across 4 continents, encountering all these refugee entrepreneurs who are reclaiming their own destiny. So it's really that question of who gets to write their own destiny, right? And how do we do it? It's a journey across cultures and countries, and it's a journey of personal reckonings as well, right? Now, with Startups Without Borders, it's even more exciting because we are starting our work in the United States and the Americas. Wow. I come from Argentina, and I always joke that we have not done work yet there. So we have had, people, entrepreneurs coming from Latin American countries in Europe, but now it's time to begin working in this part of the world. There's so much potential. There's so much happening in terms of movements, right? What we saw in Venezuela this year, it's one of the largest refugee crises in the world. And these are people that are carrying their talent, their innovation, their grit, their ideas across borders. And that's a huge business opportunity as well. So we want to bring that to this part of the world.
Fantastic. Who gets to write their own destiny then?
Those who are brave enough to write it.
I love that. That's great.
Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, I think courage, the courage to decide you are going to be the author of your own book, of your own life, that you're going to be victimized by circumstances, that you're going to decide not to be the victim. Because the victim is a mentality as well, right? We can be victim to our circumstances, or we can decide to go beyond the circumstances and build something. Like the many refugees we come across who have been through the hardest things a human being can come through, right? And they take the reins of their future, of their story. They build initiatives. Sometimes they're nonprofits. Sometimes they're for-profits. They're tech startups. Sometimes they're small business, micro businesses. We've worked with people from so many different nationalities. And that's the one common principle, is that passion for building, for creating, ignites a whole other part of their story and our story as a society, as a community with a shared destiny.
For someone listening who feels they don't have the courage right now, how do they go about building it? How do they go about doing that?
That's such a good question. How do you build courage? I think you can try with small things, right? That thing you don't dare do. Going to talk to the person you don't dare to talk. Asking for that advice you don't dare ask. I think you can start with really small actions, and then you will prove to yourself that courage pays off, and that it's bringing about that person you need to become, right? It's helping you build that person you need to become.
Well, the example you gave with the letter that you mentioned earlier in the episode here is, there's a version of that within this. As I mentioned, like the reference points that we're building in that you were able to find from past experiences as we're building in these moments of just small moments of courage. Because if you're not used to taking massive leaps, taking a massive leap is a big risk.
Yeah.
And if we can take those smaller pieces, example of having a conversation with someone that it might have felt a bit uncomfortable with, or asking for help, or whatever those small pieces are, and then noticing what occurs as a result. Yeah. And noticing what you're doing is you're building an understanding as to the benefit of building that courage and what it leads to. And you'll be surprised, I think, how quickly it can shift.
Yeah.
And it's the same I found with curiosity. I know, like when I sold everything that I own and went on this big journey around the world, there was this insane sense of curiosity. So I think maybe for those listening, if you were to build both curiosity and courage together,
yeah,
you might be pretty amazed at what happens, because then all of a sudden it almost becomes a game in a way.
Yeah.
Where it is, let's see what happens if I go to talk to that person. And it's almost like you're going through it like it's an experiment, rather than am I going to be seen as less than or more than or anything like that. It's just like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And that combination between the two, might just magnify and speed up the level of courage that you might be able to notice within yourself. And all of a sudden you're off to the races, right?
Absolutely. And I think there's also something to say about the curiosity to put yourself in uncomfortable places that you wouldn't go.
That. Yeah.
So your story about your jungle and that whole experience was because you put yourself, you didn't want to go do the time lapse of the stars, but you did it, right?
Yeah.
So putting yourself out there, and that's part of one of the habits I really like as well. Travel to new places that are unexpected, with cultures that I don't know. I love discovering cultures. And beyond the fact that I love languages, I love to learn that, I love to dig into different religions and what they believe in. That's a curiosity, but it's also the idea of, let me put myself in the shoes of a person in this country.
Yeah.
What would I do? What would I feel? Will I make it? right? There's countries where, I don't know, in Mexico, I think they eat these insects, and let's go and try things that I wouldn't try every day. And let's learn from people that are different from us. I think there's so much power in connecting with people that are different from us, that have different religions, different cultural backgrounds, languages, beliefs, because there's so much to learn there.
Yeah.
And it's that curiosity. If you're led by curiosity and not ideas on what they are supposed to be or what they are supposed to think or say or believe, if you let yourself be guided by curiosity and really put yourself in that new environment, new place, that diversity will bring about the best in you and you will come so enriched. And that's courage.
It is. Yeah, I agree with that. That's two countries that you mentioned, Egypt and Jordan. My aunt and I went a few years ago and spent some time there in both countries. And the couple of times where we were able to sit down for lunch with a couple of local families and just, it was awesome. I got my guitar out and we sang it. It was just, it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. Some of the most incredible, beautiful people. And yeah, when you put yourself into those kinds of situations where we are so much more alike than we are different.
Absolutely.
So much more alike than we are different, and enabling yourself to be, again, to place yourself into those different environments. I found exactly the same. It's a big, beautiful world, and it's there to be explored, and it's there to explore with people and through experiences that you have together and alone and all the different things. So this has been a really good conversation. I really appreciate you coming in. We have a rapid fire segment on the show called Your Edge.
Okay.
3 questions based on values, beliefs, and habits. Maybe something comes up of what we've already spoken about, or maybe you come up with something else. What's your number one value and why?
I would say courage, although it's repetitive, but I think courage has been it has brought about the best things I've gone through in life. The courage to move to Egypt in a time when tourists were not going to Egypt, and the courage to put myself in other people's shoes and try to learn and see what happens. I didn't have a house or a job or an outline for what the future would look like. But I think that was the best decision I ever made. So, and I think I try to keep that, we start to grow older and start to like routines a bit more. And I always try to keep myself accountable to this idea of having the courage to try something new, having the courage to, go to a different place where I haven't been. There's so many cultures I haven't been to yet. So I want to explore that. And the courage to start a business. That was a big one, I think. And it's brought about so much beauty and the best people I ever met. I met them through the work that I do.
Well, especially with the belief that you mentioned you had earlier of I'm not meant to be a leader.
Yeah.
That's an incredible amount of courage to go, screw that. I'm going to go and do it anyway, right? So that ability, and because I think that's often, where some of the biggest breakthroughs happen is when you challenge the beliefs that you had that were currently limiting your success or limiting your potential breakthroughs. When we challenge those, not only leads to a certain result, but I think it opens up a new part of ourselves as well, which is beautiful in its own right. What's a belief that's shaped who you've become, whether it's a belief about yourself, about others, or the world?
There's a quote, there's a phrase I love, which is, there's no one you couldn't love once you've heard their story.
Oh.
And I think that's really guided me. When you start talking to people and dive into their story and you hear their story, there's no way you don't love them. Even the people who think radically different than you, empathy is within us. And stories are able to channel that empathy.
Love it. What's a habit, routine, or ritual that you can't live without? That could be a daily habit. It could be a family or a friend tradition once a year or a couple of times a year. If you're feeling up for it, it can be both.
So gratitude is really what transforms my days.
Yep.
It really transforms your life. So it's something I try to stick to very much. There will be periods where life gets busy and you forget to do it, but you do notice how your mindset changes. So gratitude is something I try to stick to very, very much. I have a family without borders as well. So parents in Argentina, siblings in Europe. Now I'm in New York. So trying to meet at least, once a year, twice a year is important as well. Staying connected to family.
Yeah, it's an important one. massive advocate for it for myself, of mine living back in Australia and it being 4 flights and more than 30 hours to get back to see family. And one of the things that I'm a big believer in is instilling with my nieces and nephews back home, one of the attributes, it's not the only one, but like that you could follow your dreams and still make time for the people that matter most to you.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we're leading by example and showcasing those different things that we want to instill in people, it's a beautiful thing. So I love that you get the time with your family. It's important. So thank you for coming on the show. It's been amazing having a conversation with you. And where can people find out more about Startups Without Borders, the book that's coming out, anything you want to share?
Absolutely. So Startups Without Borders is everywhere on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn. We have our platform as well, startupswb.com. And they can find about my book and my website, valentinaprimo.com.
Right.
Or on my personal Instagram as well, where I share a few updates on how the book is going. I've had AI give me some feedback, which was very interesting, made me emotional at some point. And the conversations you have with AI sometimes can be quite mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, isn't it? Yeah. Wow. So, well, thank you for coming.
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciate
It's
it.
been such a pleasure. Thank you for such a rich conversation. I've been very inspired by you as well.
Oh, I appreciate that. And absolute pleasure. It's been a great conversation. And for those of you tuning in, we'll have everything that was mentioned linked in the show notes at cameronatlas.com/podcast. We've got some great new guests coming up. So make sure you hit that follow button, leave a comment. And until next time, go and write the next line in your story. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode here on The Edge of Possible.